Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones, and today we have a returning guest. It's a great episode we just got done. Really enjoyed it. For those of you who aren't aware, we have two formats on Veteran State of Mind Network. We have the War Story podcast, where we do interviews about people's war stories. I don't know how to work out. And we also do like Veteran State of Mind, like we have today, which is more of a conversation. These can be anything from talking about the military and more of instead of like people's stories, it's a bit more kind of like thoughts, reflections, that kind of thing. Sometimes we'll have people on who have done extraordinary things or who have great advice to give. So yeah, one's interviews, one's conversations. If you enjoy the podcast and you'd like to do us a favor, you can tell a friend about it. Share it on social media, copy, paste the link to a friend, send it in a text. Share the podcast around, please, guys. If you enjoy it, then somebody else will. So if you could share it, that'd be awesome. Some of you have been asking, now that we don't do the Patreon anymore, some of you have been asking if there's a way to support the podcast, sending money and everything like that. And as much as I appreciate that, we're not taking money directly off people anymore. But if you would like to give some money indirectly, I have a new book out. It's called D-Day, The Unheard Tapes. It's a story of the Battle of Normandy. So not just D-Day, but the whole kind of 3 months-ish of the Battle of Normandy. And it's told through 150, more than 150 personal accounts from the Battle of Normandy. There's stories from people on both sides. There's stories from civilians. There's people serving in the Navy, in the Air Force, in the armies, all kinds of voices to tell that story. And if you enjoy listening to this podcast, then I can say for certain that you will enjoy the book. It's also available on audiobook. It mean a lot to me. If you did want a copy, obviously I understand not everyone's in a position to go buying books. If you can't, totally understand, but I do think it's something that you would enjoy. Obviously, we've had a couple of D-Day veterans on the podcast, and it was a great honour to have them on. Most of the people who are included in the book, in fact, almost all of them, have passed away. Some of the interviews were from the 80s, some were from the 90s, and you know these people were already kind of late there. I mean, we're pushing on. It's the 80th anniversary in June, and so that's on there. If you want signed copies, I have a link in the show notes for those, and it's out on May the 23rd, but you can pre-order now. Signed copies down in the notes. So if you haven't listened to John's first appearance on the podcast, then if you go back a few episodes to War Story 001, then you can hear all about John's deployments to Afghanistan, which has some absolutely cracking stories in there. And just before we get into it, I also want to say a big thank you to Hamilton Gold for sponsoring today's episode. We'll hear more from them later, but for now, please give a very warm welcome to Mr. John Dixon. John, welcome back to the podcast, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for having us.
Your last episode, mate, instant classic. People loved it, especially the driving up on the Taliban orders group and jumping out the door.
Yeah, there was a few more details on that, but we can chat about that another time, I reckon. But
So one for a beer, is it?
It was a very interesting day. Yeah.
We're going to do a bit of a different format today. Obviously, like last one, we kind of did the War Story podcast. Today will be a bit more conversational. But with that being said, we do want to talk a bit about, you did some future operations after Afghanistan. And just so people know, there's some things you'll be able to talk about, some things you won't. That's why we're not going into the same kind of depth as we did on the other one. But just kind of run us through your kind of deployments to the Middle East, because you've never been out to that kind of part of the world before, right? This was the first time was after your Afghanistan tours.
Yeah, so I've managed to miss those earlier trips to Iraq. So I guess after that, the next opportunity, we're all sort of kicking stones, wondering what we're going to do once Afghanistan had shut down. And ISIS had started to raise its head. And during that time, also MH17 was shot down, had a lot of Australians on board. So our unit and our brethren from across the way there in Perth deployed there or in the region to help support that too. And yeah, basically on the way back, our unit got stopped at the UAE there. I was told ISIS had kicked off at this point. and was, showcasing all their stuff on YouTube for everyone to see and the globe to see. And that was the start of our unit moving into, we didn't know at what capacity at that point. Initially, the guys are going to parachute in and stop an ISIS advance on a Yazidi sort of cut-off area where they trapped the Yazidis, and some American forces jumped in instead on top of this mountain and then pushed them back with air power. So initially, that's what we were going for. And then the unit went into Iraq, and I was on the second rotation to that. So those guys started to set up the place, and then pushed into Iraq. So it was the first time in the Middle East proper, I guess.
When you went out there then, when you were serving and stuff, are you kind of kept abreast of what's going on in these regions or groups, or is it kind of like you're not briefed up until something actually kicks off and then you get backfilled on what's going on?
Yeah, so I guess in special operations, we have weekly briefs on wherever Australia's interests are, and depending on where you sat in the unit, particularly with our domestic counterterrorism role, you might be briefed up on what's happening internally. So we'd have internal intelligence agencies give us a weekly brief on who they're monitoring or what they're monitoring, what chat has been like. And then the same would happen for overseas. So if we're not on counterterrorism that time, but ready in the deployment cycle somewhere, they would be briefing us up. Although, like when we're going to and from Afghanistan, Iraq wasn't on our horizon really. We were going in and out of there doing personal security details for high value politicians or generals or whatever. But unless you're on that, we really didn't. We were kept abreast, but we really didn't care. Like we're solely focused on our next deployment and where we were going and what we we're doing.
I should ask before we go any further, what was the kind of the end point for your deployments to Afghanistan in terms of when did they like wrap up the mission for you out there? Because it seems like you're going back and forth pretty regular. So when did that stop and why?
2013 was I think I was on the second last deployment for our unit. And I knew by this stage that would be my last deployment. And we're really, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but everything had changed. We really had to step up and let like the police and whoever were our partner forces do the bulk of the work, which, was horrible. Yeah, they sort of got their asses kicked a fair few times after that. Like we thought we'd sort of prepped them a bit better. But that, like I said on the last one, they'd making side deals and stuff as well with whoever to keep themselves safe after we left. So, 2013 is when it's wrapped up. And that's how it wrapped up for me. It was a little bit disappointing how it was wrapping up. It was a little bit lackluster where we reckon we should have just flogged excuse my language, just flogged the absolute ass out of it right up until we left. But it was a little bit lackluster for us. And we lost a guy who earned a BC there and stuff like that, which is, one of those double-edged sort of events. Proud that he was able to posthumously be awarded the BC, but obviously would rather he'd walked out of that contact and things like that. So, it is what it is. So it was a bit of a kick in the guts, that one, bit of a gutty in the end. So, but 2013's how it wrapped up, and they said, if you guys kept going back in with personal security detachments, and we had smaller elements doing other things, they're probably one of those subjects we won't touch on that sort of stayed there right up until the end. Yeah, they sometimes popped up and reared their head every so often. Somebody go, oh, didn't think Australians are still here. But every so often that happens.
So, mate, you mentioned partner forces in Afghanistan. What was the kind of situation with them in working against ISIS? And is that something that changed over time too?
Yeah, so we had partner forces. Are you talking about Iraq, obviously?
Yeah, Iraq, mate, yeah. Sorry, I should clarify that as well. Were you Syria, Iraq, or was it exclusively Iraq?
Exclusively Iraq. So I was out at Al-Assad, that mostly, which was abandoned at that point, halfway between sort of Baghdad and Syria. And the partner force was different. It was, I don't think we were given, guys in Baghdad had a little bit more fire in them. We were given this ragtag bunch of dudes that were like, I don't know. I don't think they were put out there for good reasons. They were like a wild bunch of dudes and not really cut out for soldiering. Most of them said they were defecting once they'd received their mandatory training, or said they were going to go back to Baghdad and party or they were really suspect under suspicion for like being in other types of groups in that area. So we had to monitor it as a counterintelligence game as much as it was anything else. I found that the Iraqis were very, we were probably training more Shia soldiers out there, and ISIS being Sunni backed. I found they really didn't care unless it was affecting their neighborhood, like specifically. So if they were from Baghdad, ISIS was still a fair way off from there, and now the international community was involved. So they sort of thought, well, they're not going to get there. And so they didn't have any sort of like dog in that fight, so to speak. And initially, a little bit like I found them a little bit cowardice. And I was like, used to tell them, if the Afghanis find out like how weak-willed you are, they'll have this country in no time. Like, don't let them, don't ever let one know, like, you guys are so soft, sort of thing. I say that as a joke because that's not the way they turned out. They turned out quite professional and aggressive, but at the same time, it was a balancing act of not giving them too much because, who knows? You've seen how it's all worked. We'll be back there fighting sooner or later. So, they're our friends today. So it was a very fine line that we had to draw. That's why the war for ISIS was so prolonged as well. Like, we probably could have taken them ourselves in, a matter of weeks or months. But what we didn't want to cause is power vacuums with that Sunni Shia power vacuum. If we'd wiped the Sunni-backed ISIS down, the Shia would have retaliated. If we'd given them too much training, Iraqis too much training, that could have been used against against the Sunnis later on, or against another group, or potentially back against it. So it was more difficult and more had to have a bigger picture and strategic oversight on that one. Like it was very frustrating as a primarily up until this point an assault force to be sitting there teaching these guys when we're going like, hey, we'll just go in there and just mop the floor with these dudes. But yeah, we were to do it differently, and it was hard to see the bigger picture initially.
So is it kind of like an advise and assist role that you were doing out there?
Yeah, so it started as train, advise, assist, and then it went to a company, so go out with them. Actually, the funny thing initially here is we were given the go by our Prime Minister to get outside the wire, and they just said, go nuts, like do whatever you need to do. But at that point, the Americans were no boots on the ground, no formal boots on the ground. And because we're a little bit povo, we didn't have our own air support or air medical evacuation support or QRF. And so basically the Americans said, because of our policies, no boots on the ground, if you guys get into a big fight, we're not coming to rescue you. So yeah, pin your ears back, get amongst it. But we're not coming. And on that note, having no AME was probably not great. So they just didn't want to end up in a Black Hawk Down situation when they've said no boots on the ground. Initially, that was the change. And there's another whole part of our involvement in Iraq. The training, advise, assist, and accompany was one part. And there was another whole other part that, I won't talk about.
Like, you've spoken about the kind of like your thoughts on the troops that you're working with. What about the blokes on the other side? Like, did you have any contact with ISIS on that first deployment?
No, so not really, not directly. Indirectly, I copped plenty from them, so I'd like to send their rockets in and everything. So indirectly, we got to exchange that way, and we ran a lot of jobs remotely, where with our partner force, where we were sort of set back and not to be at the forefront. So, with drones and communications, you can do a lot. And we were very successful in running those missions initially, and you'd watch it. There's just classic kill TV and maneuvering like chess pieces around a chessboard, and you could see it all from a bird's eye view. So it was pretty cool seeing that. We were also there for the fall of Ramadi, which was quite big, which is a funny story in itself. There was a cell of our guys, and there was about 3 of them working on it with, some low-vis spies and whatever they were doing. They had some guys out there and claimed that Ramadi was going to fall around about a certain date range, and if they didn't get X amount of support. And it was briefed in the US right up to the White House and Pentagon and things like that, as the story goes. And basically by all the intelligence agencies, these the Aussies were being too paranoid is what we were told, and that Ramadi wouldn't fall. And it did exactly on when the guys said it would and how it would fall. And that was a bit of a nightmare for those guys because they had to get their Iraqi partner forces out and they watched it all unfold on Kill TV. And, they're telling them to take a right turn down the street because they can see ISIS forming from the left. And then, the Iraqis are freaking out and go, no, turning left is the quickest way. And they turn left and they just watch whole platoons and companies get annihilated in these ambushes all on Kill TV sort of thing. So, it was a bit hectic, but that's how we ran out most of our missions initially. And then the subsequent guys that followed on would, get up, retake Ramadi and go up to Mosul and things like that. And while they were still supposed to be a little bit behind, they probably saw things a lot closer up.
So Ramadi, I think, is a Sunni sea, right? Predominantly.
Probably.
Yeah. So
I couldn't say with any.
I think it is. I think that's the case. It could be wrong. The kind of point stands not with either ways is when ISIS took place. Let's forget about whether Ramadi is or not. But if ISIS took a town that was Sunni predominantly, would they treat the people there all right, or was everyone getting treated like shit? Didn't matter if you were Sunni, Shia, whatever.
At face value, it appeared that they were treated better, and that's how they got their run on. So they were lightning fast across it because they had Sunni sort of sympathisers and empathisers. And I wouldn't want to say that they were all like that, but it did appear that was that way. And, when we were then there and asking all these questions, like, why aren't we just taking this and smashing them up? They're like, this is on the verge of civil war rather than, this ISIS. Like if they said we could turn this into a civil war by backing one group too strongly. So I think, definitely they had the backing in a lot of places of Sunni sympathisers. And, that was a lot of that was created out of the first Iraq war where, Mukhtar al-Sadr and some of those people were had caused heaps of grief and caused that split between Sunni and Shia. Use the opportunity basically to increase and drive that wedge between Sunni and Shia. And so this was sort of building up from then, I think.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I mean, it's one of the things that doesn't really get talked about much is how much ethnic cleansing and shit was going on in Iraq, during when we were there. Not maybe in the same way that it was happening because there's different ways of doing ethnic cleansing. You can line everyone up against a wall and put them in a ditch, or you can just force people out by being violent. Attack enough mosques, threaten enough people, and they'll get up and move. And that kind of was happening, a lot out there. I think it was something that was really, really kind of underplayed in the news and stuff under here, was how bad that kind of thing was. And then, like you said earlier, the tribes. I mean, I think when you mention tribes to people who haven't been to Iraq or something, they're like, what the fuck do you mean? Most people have heard the Sunni Shia thing and stuff, but they haven't heard about these tribal loyalties. And like you said, it's just, it doesn't matter what the army's telling you. It's well, the tribal leaders say I'm doing this, so I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's hard for us to kind of get our head around that, over here.
Yeah, yep. Oh, most definitely. And I think, in the end, it was us not recognising some of that earlier on. Wanted going back to Afghan, not recognising that early enough to get in front of it. And, hindsight's 2020. But yeah, back to Iraq where they, there was groups on both sides, like Sunni and Shia, back in the initial Iraq war in 2003, where they would kill the other side. And if that didn't get enough of a reaction from the other side, they'd kill their own people and blame it on the other side to try and cause that hatred. And some of those famous Al-Qaeda in Iraq commanders were famous for doing that. They'd kill their own people and blame it on the other side just to drive that hatred up. If the other side hadn't been, killing enough of them as it was. So they'd just go out and that's a real bad one to hear about where they, get a kid off the street and drill holes in them with drills and stuff like that and, drill a hole through their head and chuck them out on the road and have some type of Sunni or Shia mark left on them. And they'd done it themselves, but just to drive up the hatred towards it. So during the time that we were out of country proper, I guess, this had been building and they had the support. It was easy enough to get the support because the hatred was there. And in my opinion, having, been there when ISIS and then even trying to temper the Shia soldiers from a retaliation type mindset, trying to temper that, the hatred is just, I don't think it can be done. Like it's not decades, it's centuries away. Like even if they sort of made peace now, it would be centuries away before that there was actual true peace for them to forget. And you look at cultures that are based on storytelling and things like that, passing on stories. Like even I remember a story about when you guys went down to Sangin or something. There was the Afghans kicked off about the British being back, and they hadn't been for hundreds of years, but they're like,
oh mate, they remember.
They don't have TVs and stuff like that, so they tell stories around like the fire. And a great grandpappy was fighting the British and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, like to them, it was back. They were only here 10 years ago, type thing. But so a lot of that stuff is passed on that way.
It's like World Cups to them. It's like we won 3 World Cups against the British, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like the impression I always got on that was that they were almost kind of like, it was like, yeah, fair one. Like it was a war. It was man on man kind of thing. Whereas the Russians, like they fucking hate the Russians.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, whereas the Afghans with us, they were more like, yeah, it was kind of, it was all cricket. You brought an army, we come down and beat you. It's all good. You weren't going around like mass rape, like burning villages down, that kind of thing. It was like a column of troops. I'm not saying, obviously, it'd be naive to think there wasn't any fucking crimes of fucking shit going on, but not on the scale that there was with the Soviets,
Oh, definitely.
Talking of Afghans again, if we were picking characters in like, if we were picking characters on a fucking, I don't know, I don't play video games, so this analogy is not going to be very good, but, if you had to weigh up your Afghan fight, if we're looking at history, like, right now, if you and me were talking about ancient history and we could compare the qualities of a Roman legionary against like a fucking, a Mongol or, warrior, and how would you compare the Afghans and the Iraqis as, I'm not even going to say as soldiers, because really they're not soldiers most of the time, just like as warriors?
Man, it's almost like we've just been talking about. It's too difficult to answer because you couldn't say Afghans and you couldn't say Iraqis.
Right, that's a great point.
You could say a certain type of Afghan is very good and then a certain type of Iraqi is good. So for us, we had a Hazarian-based commando unit earlier on in our Afghan. And, they'd been beaten down by the Pashtuns over a certain period of time. So they had a dog in the fight. And they were very efficient, they were smart, and they were good, and they were ruthless when they needed to be. And they were very good. So out of all of them, I probably stacked them the highest, that group. And they weren't just Hazarians, they were Uzbeks, and they were Pashtuns as well. But they primarily had like Hazarian type, probably say 60% were Hazaras. So, and then with Iraq, I'd say we worked mostly solely with a CT unit, their counterterrorism unit, and they were very proficient. They were selected a next level up or levels above, so they were actually quite proficient. In terms of natural warrior drive, I think the Afghans probably had it because they've just got something deep inside them. Hey, like that's something different about them, like where they just cook off whenever things go like, yeah. So I think they're just used to it. Hey, like it's like, I think at this point, the graveyard of empires, the Afghan nickname, I guess, like it's got to be bred into them. Like genetically, there's got to be something changed in their DNA to make them sort of that warrior type class of person. I definitely, would hold them a little bit high above, but that CT team that we worked with in Iraq were very proficient in the end. And you would be hard picked to pick them, like to point them out among other Middle Eastern special forces to say, oh yeah, they are, or even maybe some sort of NATO forces are pretty good.
So else I would pick up on, mate, is, I agree with you. Hindsight's definitely 2020, and I think a lot of things need to be relearned. But the thing that's always struck me about Iraq is like, I mean, I don't know how far back it goes, but I know British were there. We've been involved in Iraq since at least the First World War. So I imagine we go on. And so obviously certain things are going to change, but the tribes ain't changed in that period. The religion hasn't. So that's what blows my mind. They're like, oh, didn't know the tribes are that like this. It's been like, ow, we've been involved here for like 100 years in a military capacity. This has to have been an issue before. And like in the army and the military, there's been a really good progression in like, just look at like, you can track back anything that we do from setting up a harbour area to a section attack. It's all been honed and improved upon over the years. So we've got this gradual improvement like on one kind of axis. And then the other axis is just this downhill thing of forgetting everything. And especially like the British Empire, mate, was specialised in knowing the locals and using them against each other. And somehow all of that institutional knowledge just seemed to have disappeared. And then it's like, oh, actually, these guys are tribal. Well, yeah, we've been here for 100 years. How do we not know this? Like,
yeah, how did you colonisers drop the ball on that?
yeah, fucking
You should have been all over it.
Right, watch it, convict.
Force me out of here. Now I've got to deal with all this other political bullshit. Yeah, no, we really did. And to be honest, it's this disconnect between the tactical and strategic level, in my opinion, is that most guys on the ground in Afghanistan and or Iraq or wherever you put them, they've worked this out within the first few months. They're like, hey, these dudes don't want to play ball with those guys across the other side of the river. It sounds like they've never played ball and they kind of hate those guys the last 200 years. Yet now we're forcing them into this mismatch of like a fighting force, and we wondered why one piffed a grenade at the other guy's sleeping. It's not like that information's not passed up. It's like it's given, I think, just low priority at the strategic level. And no, this is how we're running it, and this is what I'll do. And like, okay, well, cool. That's easier said than done. And then it's like you're getting the whip cracked on you because like they're like, why haven't they done this? And you're like, well, fuck, because they hate those dudes. Like, I can't believe we're copping this. Like, we told you this 6 months ago. Like, yeah, no, I definitely feel like it's dropped at the strategic level, and it takes a back seat to whichever general's got his bat and ball set and wants to set things up the way he wants it. And that's where we fail. That's where like groups like the ODA, the American ODA, are hugely successful if they're left to do their thing. If they don't have that huge strategic oversight. Yeah, and the perfect example of that is Afghanistan falling within 12 weeks at the start, or whatever it was, 8 weeks at the start, is they chose their key players properly and they managed them accordingly, and they were given, and only a small number of them, and they were given almost free reign to do it. And they'd been knocked on the head at that point. Even the Taliban thought the war was over, but we then went on to do some stupid stuff and started an insurgency that grew.
Jordan, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for coming on here and spending your money on the podcast and helping us keep the lights on here. Tell us a bit about yourself, mate, and a bit about the company.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I'm Jordan. So served in the army for about 10 years, Corps of Royal Engineers, but left or leaving in 6 months actually to take over a family friend's jewelry business. There's really two sides to the business. So one side is kind of offering engagement rings and wedding rings, where offering the military, blue lights, veterans, 30% discount on that, and signet rings as well that we produce. And then the other half of it is kind of, buying gold. So whether that's your mum's old gold jewelry in a jewelry box, or helping people invest in gold, those are probably the two main things we do. But the largest part by far is the work that we get from the military for engagement rings, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've got a lot of American listeners out there too. Do you do business with overseas or just in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely we do. Obviously there's the shipping stuff to take into account, but I think normally with the discount that we offer, the shipping costs are pretty much accounted for pretty easily there.
Awesome. And where can people learn more about this, mate?
Yeah, so if they go onto our Instagram, it's probably the best place to see what we do, but we've got a website as well. We put all of the photos of our engagement rings, wedding rings, signet rings on there. But yes, send us an email or drop us a message on Instagram. It's usually the best way.
Jordan, thanks for coming on, mate. And we'll link everything down in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the podcast. Do you think that maybe one of the reasons why it was like in the Empire days, you had a lot more decentralized control? It'd be like, right, John, you're going to be governor of this district. Get it done. You know what the fucking, you know what the kind of the mission statement is of the British Empire. Go and make this happen. Because you couldn't have, I'm not saying there was no interference. I mean, politicians are always going to try and meddle where they can. But it's not like you could just pick up the phone and go, no, you got to do this. And do you reckon maybe that's part of it, is that when we were out there, they could literally just fucking get on a phone and be like, no, you got to do this, right? Stop doing this today. Right, we've got this thing coming up. Don't do this. It's been a bad news day. Don't do that, And because of communications, that's really kind of, because they've always had the back seat, obviously, but it's allowed them to actually kind of be in the front seat while being in the back seat, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with you. And that, now that you've said it out loud, it's probably where it has fallen down is like there is no escaping oversight or people reaching down from where they shouldn't be reaching down. And they can contact you at any time of the day and things can change. And if it doesn't look favourable in that second, you can change it. Like, even though it could be the wrong decision, you go, yeah, in the long run, we shouldn't change it. We should let this run its course, but they're not going to do that. They'll change it too quickly. And yeah, I think that's where we sort of, you're taking 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, then, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because things are just zigzagging all the time. So you're probably right that over communication and overreach, a definite overreach. I think overreach just challenged us everywhere we went. Well, everything's running smoothly, and they go, yeah, but like strategic stuff's changing. And even an example for that in Afghanistan, and it's slightly different, but we'd been given orders to come down. This is on our last trip, that our guys are going to send our guys out firstly on a mission, and at this point we're the Afghans, this is, and we're sending them out alone, and we were their QRF force. So we would be the quick reaction force and come out if they got in trouble. And it had been working well. They'd been doing their job, and then if they got in too much trouble, we'd fly in and there'd just be bullets and RPGs zapping around, and we come in as a sledgehammer and knock it on the head and evac anyone that needed help and whatnot. Anyway, we sent these guys out, and halfway through their mission, they got hit hard. Someone had blown a leg off, a few different things. And I won't name the country. It's an obvious guess, but that commander said that we were going to stop. The commander in charge of all of ISAF at that time sort of said that we're going to stop giving them medical aid because they had to work out their own AME, how they're going to get people home, like if they're out in a fight, like how they're going to do it. Yeah, and that's a fair call. Like they need to plan for that. However, we already had guys in the field and had already promised that we would come. And so they hadn't even given an proper AME plan a thought, because we were it and QRF force. And, guys headed down the flight line, and there's very heated exchanges with the helicopter crew and our guys, some refusing to fly because they're getting told to stand down. And then our guys going like, yeah, well, I won't go into detail, but like, you will fly or there's going to be some issues. And in the end, there was a base commander had to come down and say, you guys have to return to base. And we returned, did some planning, got out, ended up getting out the gate. They gave us an exception, but hours and hours too late. The commander died, somebody else died, some injured and things like that. But that's how quickly something could change. That was so important. And you would think in that scenario, you go, oh yeah, fair call. You send them out there with no one letting them know that you were going to be a QRF. You think they would have made it an exception, like straight away, common sense, right? But it wasn't. And we were out there 12 hours late to that thing. And at a time when we're trying to avoid blue on green, and we thought, we're going to get out here and they're going to kill us. Like we've let them down. And that wasn't the case. They're very appreciative to see us turned up. They were in a bad state. But yeah, like that's a simple example of just a change of direction, just in, now we're not going to do it. And we don't give a damn who sort of wears it to that. But yeah, most definitely.
I think the other thing as well, mate, is just this. I mean, like, just to go back to that one, it's like throw a kid in a pool, say, he needs to learn to swim. Kid starts drowning. No, he's got to learn to swim. Like, he's going to be dead. He's going to be learning to swim.
But you've told him before you throw him in, I'll give you my hand or throw you a floaty. Oh, no, we've changed our mind.
But just from the point of view as well of like that commander, how much fucking UK and US and Aussie tax dollars went into training that guy and everything. Like, it's just a way, like, even if you take the human element out of it, it's just a waste of a fucking asset. Like,
100%.
Even if you're looking at it through in a cold lens. And You know, the other thing as well is like, how do you replace the US, I said it, not you, casualty evacuation system? You can't.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't replace that. You can't replace the air support.
Particularly not overnight.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not being funny, mate. Britain can't replace the fucking air support that America gives them. How the fuck are the Afghans going to do it? No one can, mate.
Yeah.
So this was one of the things that always got me, because you fucking know this, mate. You've been in the shit a lot more than I have. And how many times would you say things would have gone fucking badly tits up if it wasn't for air power, especially American air power?
Yeah, I couldn't count. You know, like for us, on the previous podcast, we talked about those DEA jobs and putting us into those high concentration of insurgent sort of number areas. Like it relied solely on it. You know, we're flying in under fire, like we're taking fire as we come in, rockets and machine guns, and then once we're on the ground, like we can do a fair bit of damage, but we can't do it all. And if someone had said, "Oh, no, policy's changed, boys, while you're out there, there's no air support," and you might have to walk back, like there would have been some problems. Definitely some people wouldn't have survived once we got back to base, that's for sure. And but it's like that human element too, though. Like when we had to leave those Afghans out there, like the UK and US and that, like Australians pride themselves on their word, right? Like, and we've given these guys our word. Like it wasn't, you know, whether we liked them or not, it didn't really matter. You know, we give our lives to rescue one. Like if one was injured up the front or whatever, like it was all soldiers were on the ground. We're all on the same side. You would gladly get up there and put yourself in harm's way to get an injured soldier on your side, regardless of whether it's Afghan, Australian or not. You're not asking like what ethnicity is before you put your hand up. Like you just go and get it done, right? Like and so we were at our word, like that was like a real slap in the face. So we told these dudes, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, mate, it's fucking the casualties that we would have had out there, NATO casualties, without air power, mate. It would have been like fucking, I mean, there would have been platoons getting overrun left, right and centre. I mean, I'm not being funny. There wouldn't have been any deployments after 2006. 3-Para would have gone out there. They'd got wiped out. No offence, 3-Para. I think a lot of the lads would tell you this themselves. And it would have been like the last time the Brits went into Afghan and everyone got massacred.
Yeah.
It was that, you know, air power made the fucking difference. And then we're just like, yeah, we're going to stop that. But yeah, the Afghan army will be all right. And we're thinking like,
yeah.
What? On what planet? Because it's not just that the Afghans, you know, some of them I think were very well trained. A lot of them weren't. But any army, any fucking army, it didn't matter if it be the American Marines, your guys, our guys, whoever. Anyone left out there on their own without air power would have been fucked.
Yeah.
And then morale would have been fucked because you know you're fucked and you know you're not getting out there if you get injured, which is massive. Knowing that someone's coming for you if you get injured, the effect that has, shout out on anyone that does that job or has done that job. If you know that you're getting out of there if you're injured, even if your fucking arms and legs are both gone, you know you're going, like, someone's coming to get you and you've got fucking the best surgeons in the world waiting for you within an hour. If you know you're getting that, your morale is a lot higher. I can't imagine what it'd be like. Like, I'm sure this is a case for a lot of people in not just Ukraine, in all kinds of conflicts around the world at the moment. Knowing, even if I get a fucking slight wound, it might be the end of me. Because no one's coming to get me. I might just get left here. Might just have a broken leg and not be able to fucking leave and someone's going to come and chop my head off.
Yeah, that's right.
That then has a massive effect on morale. That knocks back to the countries because if the troops' morale's low, their families' morale low, that affects society. And then we just had this idea that, like, that they're going to keep fighting. And one of the things that fucking grit my shit, mate, it still does, always will, was all these politicians that go, well, we thought they'd fight at least 6 months. Right, so you didn't think they win.
Yeah.
You just thought that they're going to keep dying for 6 months and then lose. How is that any better? Like, we just wanted more orphans. We thought if there's a bunch more orphans over 6 months, then it's worth it. Like, and I've never understood that. If your plan is, like, I can understand, right, if we're at Dunkirk and you're fighting a rearguard action to allow the rest of the army to get away, to then come back and fight another day and eventually win, I understand that sacrifice. But the idea of just being like, well, we're just going to fight for 6 months to lose. Well, make peace now then. Make a fucking deal. Make some kind of peace. Like this idea.
Probably save some lives.
Yeah. And like none of like, mate, it was mad when I did that Escape from Kabul book. Like I was looking at it, I'm like, it's not even something that they were saying privately. They were saying public, oh, the Afghans will fight for at least another 6 months. And then what?
Yep.
And then they lose. So people just get another 6 months of fucking all kinds of horror and then have the same fucking end result, mate. And then they're like, oh, these Afghans are cowards for surrender. Well, no, they're fucking not. They know the war's over.
Yeah, that's right. Like we told them in 2011 that we were leaving. Like win or lose, we're leaving around about 2013. We're going to start wrapping this up. And like I said on the last one with you, they were forced to make their side deals then. Like they were like, well, you know, if they're going to leave, I've got no one to back me up. I don't have air power. I don't have medevac. I don't have this. So they're already starting to make their side deals. The locals had to make their bets. So if they were in an area which is low NATO troops, you know, they're going to side with the Taliban. It's a smart decision. No one would hold that against them unless you're a fucking idiot. Yeah, and then half those Afghans too well, not half, a lot more of those Afghans were told that a truce was on the table and to not fight the Taliban, you know, and you know better than anyone. And a whole lot of those Taliban walked into those bases and these guys were under orders. Oh, yeah, there's talks and stuff like that. They didn't just give up and walk away and like were just dead set cowards. They thought something was underway, which everyone's going to be some type of fair, sort of equitable. But all these backroom chats were happening in the, you know, off to the side and no one really knew what was going on. And we put them in a bad spot for them to, they were on the back foot and they call them cowards for like, yeah.
After 20 years of fighting, mate, oh, fucking bunch of cowards. 20 years.
Yeah.
Fucking 4 times longer than the Second World War.
We go back to our good house and go, oh, all that money's sort of set me up well. Like, fucking cowards. Can't believe it. Like we've scurried off home.
And at the same time, it's like that attitude. I mean, taking prisoners, becoming prisoners in the First World War, Second World War happened a lot. And those people aren't considered cowards. You know, there was mass surrenders and stuff during the Second World War by Commonwealth troops, British troops. And we don't think of those people surrenders as cowards for surrendering because they weren't.
No, had no option.
I think that was what boiled the piss of like, I saw veterans fall into 2 camps. There was the ones who had probably never actually been on the ground, who were like, oh, why aren't they fighting for the country? It's like, mate, you fucking turned a spanner in Bastion for 6 months. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then I think anybody that actually, I mean, like you said, mate, like I went for 6 months and fucked off home. It felt like a long 6 months. So I think anyone who'd actually experienced like a little bit of it was like, fucking hell, I can't imagine doing that for 10 years. And also at the same time, knowing that your family might get fucking murdered.
Oh, crazy. Like here, just some of the stories of like just parents killing their own daughters and stuff like that. Like, just so that they wouldn't, you know, when the Taliban, after we'd left, leave a night letter saying, you know, your 9-year-old, 14-year-old daughter's up for marriage in the next, you know, and they'll shoot them in the desert. Yeah, those stories are unverified, but whether they're true or not, like none of that would surprise me in that country. That's the type of stuff that would happen. And, you know, that type of crazy stuff. It's such a tough spot to be in, and then just to sit off to the sideline and call them cowards afterwards, it's pretty rich. And like you said, there's probably no one that did any serious fighting anyway. Yeah, it's pretty rude.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I mean, how did you feel? You fought out there, you'd lost mates out there. How did you feel during the whole thing?
Like, I wasn't overly surprised that's how it ended. We all picked it like a dirty nose in 2011 when Obama had said, we went, oh, well, this has gone to shit. And we've called it early, like way too early. And those tribal complications and things like that, we sort of just knew that it was just going to end up in the way that they want it. Like, if you think this Taliban regime is going to stick together, it's not. Like, if hasn't already fractured into a million parts, like in different areas, or they may project a certain, you know, unified group, but I can bet you there is places up in northern Afghanistan and stuff like that are Taliban, don't give a fuck what the Southern Taliban are doing and will not take any orders from them. You can bet your ass there's warlords and stuff running their own show. So, like, it's Afghan, like, people used to ask me about it when it fell, and I was, looks like Afghan doing Afghan things to me. But the other bonus I get for us is we were there to destroy stuff. So we were there for the worst of the worst. and just kill. So like we're killing bad dudes and we're blowing all their shit up, and that was our sole job. Like we did have good interactions with the locals, but we didn't build anything. So we never saw a school built. We didn't put any blood, sweat, and tears protecting people building a school or putting in infrastructure and seeing kids suddenly going to school. And so I think the groups are divided up in veterans. So I think people that probably saw all that probably felt that crushing blow a little bit harder than guys like myself that were there just to tie the bad dudes up. Like your sole purpose is, hey, there's Al Qaeda or mixed fighters or real bad dudes here, go crush them. So I think from that mindset, we got let off a little bit easy because we don't have that. We don't have those pictures in the back of our heads where we're out socializing all the time with the locals and seeing like we are acutely aware of it. And like we feel gutted for the country, knowing that girls are now not allowed to go to school and seeing how things change. We're not heartless, but our job wasn't that. It was to tie up bad dudes and sort of to almost drag out the war and let all like the gremlins from around neighbouring countries, instead of blowing up buses in London, come and fight us there. And I mean, if it took some dudes off the streets of the Western world, like in Iraq, and tied them up there and kept them fighting, like that's kind of that's probably the key takeaway I take away from it, is that one, we're able to, like on a positive note, sharpen the military fighting edge, and then also, you know, if we did keep them off our streets, well, so be it. Like you know, always miss our mates that passed and things like that, and our unit did take the largest casualties doing it. I think even with the way it all went down, like I don't think they died for nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, man. The way I look at it in terms of death is, at the end of the day, we're all volunteers, and there's nowhere else you would have rather have been if you're a warrior at that time. So I look at it almost as like, rather than a bigger picture thing, it's like, was that person doing what he wanted to do? So it's the same as like, if someone dies doing a base jump, you don't need to tie that to a bigger purpose. You just go, he died doing what he loved. And I think it's, in our day and age, I feel the same way about soldiering. And I think maybe that's why, I mean, and I love these people for doing it, but I had a lot of people reach out at the time, like, are you all right? And everything about this, you know? And I was like, yeah, one, because like you said, it's like, knew this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's a long time to process it. And two, because it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, I don't think they died for nothing, because they died doing what they wanted to do. Now, if it was a conscript army and it was my, you know, people like my brother and stuff being forced to go, that'd be a different story, yeah. And the other thing as well is, you know, most of us never saw people, we never saw Kabul or a city that was kind of going back to normal. What we saw was the same village or two where people had the front line on their door every day, and they were just at the point of like, we're fucking sick of it. We don't care. If it's Taliban, if it's you, we don't care. We just stop. We just don't want this to be a fucking war zone anymore.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously, like the opportunities, and let's be fucking real, mate, in these rural areas, it's not like, even if there had been a government in Kabul and things were getting in Kabul, things ain't changing in those villages dramatically anyway. It's still going to be shit for girls. It's still going to be fucking like hard. Like you're still going to be controlled in what you do in your life one way or another. So there was that. What I want to kind of get into as well, though, mate, is I do think, like, you know, that kind of way of looking at it of, is it better to fight them there than at home? I think there's another side to that coin as well, is, you know, when there's like a bombing in London, how much of that was caused by us being in these places? Because I can't think that there was ever a bombing in London. There was definitely bombings in London by the IRA.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was any of these attacks before Iraq that I know of. I could be wrong on that. I don't think there was. And Afghanistan. So it's like a question of, because it makes sense on one hand, because you think, like, you know, the hope is, well, if this is inevitable and this is like this new brand of like radical, like, is it a new brand? I mean, that's kind of debatable. Let's just say it is. If that's new, is it better? Will it attract them there? Or have we created, have more civilians died in Europe from these attacks because we've in these places? Because, I mean, when you look at it now, like, it's still, there's still the occasional thing here and there. But I think if you match up the bombings and things like that, it was, you know, it kind of overlaps with us being in these places. And I don't know, maybe these things are an inevitability. Maybe some of them have been caused ourselves, because it all comes down to that kind of thing, like you were saying before, mate. It's a fucking revenge thing. It's in us. It's in every single one of us. That's why all of us were for going to Afghanistan, because of 9/11. But then we have to obviously say, all right, if that's how we felt, how would you then feel if a bomb fucking hits your compound and kills your granddad? You're going to feel exactly the same way. And I don't know, mate. It's this kind of tit for tat thing, and the worst of it is obviously like how much tit for tat there was, because I think people think that they saw like people like, you know, they saw us as public enemy number one and the, you know, people to take out. But like you said, I think really it was like we were the least of their concerns. The main people they wanted to fucking kill was each other.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I agree. Like, you know, we even had a T-shirt on one of our rotations that said, "Training tomorrow's terrorists today," or "Creating tomorrow's terrorists today," something like that. You know, like, so we all knew, that tit for tat thing. And it is hard to say whether 9/11 did embolden, and you would have to look at like whether those cells that did detonate themselves or do those terrorist attacks in those early 2000s in Britain or Europe, whether those plans had already been like in the stream for a long period of time, like, and an analysis of that would be interesting to see whether that was already on its way and those people had been emboldened by 9/11. And I think if we're going to go off the story that, you know, no one knew about 9/11 and all this stuff, like, you know, I'm not going to deviate from what we think probably is the likely story, but, you know, that no one knew about it, like, it could have emboldened Islamic radicalized, you know, people to conduct more attacks, knowing that, you know, intelligence agencies didn't have them all wrapped up. Yeah, but then we've certainly seen with ISIS, and it could have happened with Afghan and other Iraq too, is the ISIS-inspired people, you know, they got nothing to do with ISIS. They're on the other side of the planet. They've grown up in a shithole part of some town somewhere. They've probably been ostracized a bit because of 9/11 and treated a bit differently. And like now they're cooking off in the local shopping centre. But so maybe a bit, I'd say it's both. I'd say we've created some and some were going to happen regardless and probably would have been emboldened by 9/11. I think ISIS is a really interesting one because not only did we have people doing it at home across the globe, but so many people travelled to Iraq, like, and Syria to fight. Like, I found that incredible how many people went over there to fight, as in foreign fighters from multiple countries. It was just insane. And I think, I was sort of dumbfounded. And some of these people were stopping at the airport, like, "Oh, we got you before you left." And like, pick them out there. Let them get out there. Stop them on the way back. Don't stop them while they're stuck in here.
Stop them out there with some 7.62. I mean, fucking...
Yeah, there's a hellfire waiting out there for them. They don't get to keep them in here. They're going to go on a shopping, stabbing rampage or whatever. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to break it down and see whether we did or not.
We should have been paying for people's fucking plane tickets out there.
I could not get over that we were stopping people.
It's like, look, you sign this piece of paper to waive your rights as a British citizen, but we'll fly you first class out there.
Oh, that would, like, for us, they're like checking people that were going to Turkey or surrounding places because they say they're crossing the border, right? And they're putting all this intelligence into like stopping these people going. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, you're tracing their, like, who they're joining up with next. They're like, just let them go. Like we'll go chase them down there. Like, give us something to do over there. Like, don't stop them here. Stop them at the other end.
Yeah, great. Because it's like, oh, he's going to go, "Oh, well, I tried. Guess I'm not a jihadist anymore." Like,
yeah, that's right. It's not for me, that life, obviously. Like, because like
mental.
They spend so much, like, with here in Australia, like, and without going deep diving into it, but the amount of people that they have to use to follow these people, keep tabs on everyone is incredible. Like, the drain is incredible. And I mean, if you had an opportunity to reduce that drain, well, that was it. And we weren't doing it. So
it's exactly the same over here, mate. Exactly the same. I know some lads that kind of do it and they're just telling me how frustrating it is because they talk about the money. It's like these people are on benefits, etc. And This isn't a benefits rant. This is benefits to people who are jihadists rant. So
Yeah.
they're on benefits.
Like benefits to Nazis.
So
we're against it.
so they're already getting that money, and then they've got the money of fucking surveillance on them all the time as well. And I'm like, why? You just tell them to leave.
They are worth millions. They don't know it.
Like, I'm not being funny, mate. Like we don't have an issue with booting other people out of other countries. You come over and you go over to fucking France and get in a fight or whatever, you're gonna get booted. But it's like you're a jihadist, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I gotta protect their rights. Now I understand, like, if someone's just under suspicion, that's one thing, because you can end up under suspicion for all kinds of reasons that mean you had nothing to do with it. It's just circumstance. I mean, it's why a lot of people end up fucking dead on the end of a drone strike that was never, because suspicion can come from a lot of fucking places. But when and it's, or when the balance of probability, even if it's not, even if there's still some doubt, on balance, it's fucking mental, mate. It's fucking weird, mate, to see that kind of behavior, especially when, like, if you did like a survey of people in the public, 99% of people probably would be like, yeah, well, that's just common sense. Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And like, but here we're just, like we're backwards. We're bending over backwards everywhere. And like, we had a Link Cafe siege. You probably would have seen it, or maybe you didn't see it, where this guy took some hostages and they ended up dying. And he was asking for an ISIS flag. He said that he was ISIS inspired, like, to do it. He had up some Islamic, extremist flag in the window. He killed some people, and he's saying, I screamed it from the rooftops, I was ISIS inspired, before he had his head blown off by the cops. And then they go, nah, he just had a mental health condition and had nothing to do with it. And you're just like, what? He's literally telling you. And like, we've got people here sprouting it on the internet, like they are ISIS this, ISIS that, and particularly during that time. And we're like, nah, he'll be right. Let's just leave him to his own devices or whatever, or not let him out, like, to go fight or whatever. And it's weird how we did it. I can't possibly do that. And to be fair, like, I don't think you're that mentally stable if you are in ISIS. So.
Mate, if you join the fucking military full stop, you're not mentally sound.
Yeah, that's right. I had this discussion recently.
Anyone who wants to go kick IEDs, you're not mentally sound. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't go, right, all right, this fucking enemy soldier's shooting at me. Let me go and check on his mental health status before I put him down. It's like, fucking, it doesn't matter what his reasons are. He's the enemy. What are you doing? Absolutely fucking bonkers, mate. And it's kind of bizarre, things like that have gone, mate. And the other thing is as well, it's like he's asking for an ISIS flag. You've got one behind you. I'm not being funny. Like, could he not just make one himself? Have they got like a really good, have they got like a lot, like, really kind of powerful lawyers who come after you if you break the trademark or something? Like, what's the crack on that one?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit simple when he couldn't get his hands on one.
I'm like, he couldn't figure out how to do the flag. Like, I mean, you could have done a little DIY one.
I mean, you have to get yourself over there, right? So they probably stopped him on a plane at some point. He could have got one, but they probably didn't let him out of the country. So he's just like, oh, well, I'm going to have to get him to hand deliver it.
How common were those flags out there? Because it's always a little, it reminds me of like, it's almost like the Japanese flag thing in the Second World War. You'd see them in, like, veterans would bring these flags back and stuff. And always kind of jealous because anyone I know it was over in like Iraq or whatever and came back with like cool ISIS coins and ISIS flags. There's some good merchandise going, mate.
Man, their merchandise was on point. Like, they had watches, they had rings, like signet rings. Like, yeah, man, like this. So they had watches, hats, beanies, T-shirts. Mate, you think of it, like they'd obviously had been around the Americans and all of us. Like, they had been living on camp with us at some point, and they're like, look at these bad boys just banging out everything. But there's watches, ISIS face on it. Like, they were just non-stop, like, love the flag and quality stuff too. Like, that one's a bit of a crappy one. But they were, some of the ones are just like, I don't know where they're getting them made, just printed bulk Chinese just out of Vietnam or somewhere. But yeah, they had some good merch. I never got my hands on a Taliban flag, which I was really gutted about, but they were few and far between. They weren't like the same, right?
I wonder if it's like an ISIS, like Black Rifle coffee or something.
No, yeah, give it a few years and they're veterans and they get out and they got to start their coffee companies. I go, what are those boys doing? Oh, since they stopped fighting, they make coffee and T-shirts and hats and stuff. So we'll just bang that on and start our own shooting courses.
Oh fuck yeah! Suicide bomb courses that no one's ever made it to the end of the course. All right, bro. Right, mate. We're gonna have to wrap up today, mate. I've got to shoot. I've got a call in a bit, mate. But thanks so much for your time today, bro. Really appreciate it. Good to have a chat a bit on the light-hearted side of things.
Yeah, and congratulations on that new book too. It was good to finally. I probably nearly put my foot in it a couple of times, a little bit on the last one. But good to see it all come out.
Yeah, so relief to get that done, mate. Almost didn't happen. It was really kind of through nobody's fault, just the nature of how things go. It was so many different things to get copyright cleared from and stuff. It was a lot of work. So shout out to my editor Ingrid on that one, because I put a lot of work in it, and Ingrid put in a fucking biblical amount of work on it. So, yeah, excited for that, mate. Thanks for bringing that up. Help me plug it at the end of the podcast, mate.
Yeah, no, it'll be good for a look at it. So, yeah.
Well, cheers, brother. Thanks for your time.
Stay safe, mate.
Sorry, mate.
See ya.
Well, guys, John's already done a good job of plugging my book there. If you're interested in a signed copy of D-Day, The Unheard Tapes, then you can get that linked down in the show notes. Is also available on audio and in Kindle format. What do you call those? Ebooks. That's all linked down in the show notes as well. It comes out on May 23rd. Thank you for everyone who's asked about it and who's said that they're excited about it. That means a lot to me. And also want to say thanks to Hamilton Gold for supporting today's podcast. John, thanks for coming on, mate. Always a pleasure. And thank you guys for listening. Catch you next time, and we love you. Bye.